The ad was simple, almost invisible among the clutter of classifieds on Craigslist. Free puppy to good home, 8 weeks old, German Shepherd mix, must pick up today. No number, just an address in the hills outside Ashford, Colorado, a town so small most maps forgot to mark it. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cross sat in the quiet of his rented cabin, scrolling through his phone with no real purpose. Just killing time, trying not to think. He had been home for 3 weeks. Home was a loose term. The cabin belonged to a friend who owed him a favor. The mountains around Ashford reminded him of places he had been, places he could not talk about. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The silence here was different, though. No tension, no waiting for the crack of gunfire or the hiss of radio static. Just wind through pine trees and the occasional call of a hawk circling overhead. Ethan was 33 years old, broad-shouldered, 6 feet tall, with dark brown hair kept military short and a jawline shadowed by a few days of stubble. His gray-blue eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much but said too little. He moved with the quiet efficiency of a man trained to disappear, even in plain sight. On leave, they called it. Recovery, the doctors said. Post-deployment adjustment, the therapist named it. Ethan just called it surviving. He stared at the ad again. Free puppy. Something about it felt off, but he could not place why. Maybe it was the urgency. Must pick up today. Or maybe it was the address, scrawled like an afterthought. 1792 Hollow Ridge Road. He had driven past that area once. Dirt roads, abandoned properties, the kind of place people went when they did not want to be found. Ethan set the phone down and looked at his own dog, Titan. A Belgian Malinois, 85 pounds of muscle and loyalty. Titan lay by the fireplace, his amber eyes half open, watching Ethan with the calm patience of a soldier who knew when to wait. They had served together for 5 years. Explosive detection, tactical support. Titan had saved Ethan's life twice, once in Kandahar, once in Syria. The kind of saves that did not make it into reports but lived forever in the spaces between heartbeats. Titan, Ethan said quietly. The dog's ears twitched. Want to go for a ride? Titan stood immediately, tail wagging once. Not excitement, just readiness. Ethan grabbed his jacket, checked his sidearm out of habit, and headed for the door. The address was 20 minutes away, deep into the hills where cell service died and the only company was shadows. The road twisted upward through dense forest. Aspens lined the path, their white bark glowing faintly in the afternoon light. The air smelled of pine sap and damp earth. Ethan drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near Titan's head. The dog sat in the passenger seat, nose pressed to the window, breathing in scents Ethan would never understand. When they reached Hollow Ridge Road, the pavement ended. Gravel crunched under the tires. The trees thickened, blocking most of the sunlight. Ethan slowed the truck, scanning the area. The address led to a clearing at the end of a dead-end road. A small farmhouse sat at the center, its white paint peeling, its porch sagging. Behind it stood a barn, its doors half open, revealing darkness inside. Ethan parked 50 yards back, near the tree line. Something in his gut tightened. Titan sensed it immediately. The dog's body went rigid, ears forward, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Easy, boy, Ethan murmured. Let's see what we are walking into. He stepped out of the truck, moving quietly. Years of training made silence automatic. Titan followed, staying close to Ethan's left leg, the position they had practiced 1,000 times. The farmhouse looked empty. No lights, no movement. But as Ethan approached, he heard it. A faint sound, high-pitched, desperate, whimpering, coming from the barn. Titan's growl deepened. Ethan placed a hand on the dog's head, steadying him. Stay close. They moved toward the barn, boots silent on the packed dirt. The doors hung loose on rusted hinges. Ethan peered inside, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. What he saw made his blood run cold. Cages, At least 15 of them, stacked against the walls. Inside, dogs, puppies, some barely old enough to be weaned. German shepherds. Belgian Malinois. Rottweilers. Their coats were matted, ribs visible, eyes glazed with fear. Some lay motionless, others pawed weakly at the wire. The smell hit him next. Ammonia, blood, decay. Ethan's jaw tightened. His hand moved instinctively to his weapon. Titan pushed forward, nose working the air, his body coiled tight. One of the puppies, a small German shepherd with floppy ears and a white patch on her chest, lifted her head. She looked directly at Ethan. Her eyes, dark and wet, held something he recognized. Desperation. The kind that came from knowing no one was coming. A voice cut through the silence. "You lost? Friend?" Ethan turned slowly, his body shifting into a stance he had used 100 times. Calm, controlled, dangerous. A man stood in the doorway of the barn, backlit by the fading sunlight. He was stocky, mid-40s, with a shaved head and a tattoo of a snake coiling up his neck. His hands were empty, but the bulge under his jacket suggested otherwise. "Saw an ad," Ethan said evenly. "Free puppy." The man's eyes narrowed. He glanced at Titan, then back at Ethan. "Ads closed. You need to leave." Ethan did not move. Titan stood rigid beside him, a silent promise of violence. "I will leave when I get what I came for." The man's hand moved toward his jacket. Ethan spoke again, his voice dropping to a low, cold command. "Do not." The man froze. Something in Ethan's tone, in the way he stood, in the controlled stillness of his body, sent a message. This was not a civilian. This was not someone who would hesitate. The man's hand retreated slowly. "Look, man," the man said, his voice shifting to something more cautious. "You do not want to get involved in this." Ethan's gaze did not waver. Too late. Behind the man, another figure appeared. A woman, younger, thin. Her eyes darted between Ethan and the man, calculating. She held a phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. "Ray," she hissed, "get rid of him." Ray stepped forward, his confidence returning. "You need to go. Now. Or this gets ugly." Ethan tilted his head slightly, a faint smile touching his lips. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind that came before something broke. "Titan, guard." The command was quiet but absolute. Titan moved instantly, positioning himself between Ethan and the man. His teeth bared, a deep, guttural snarl vibrating through the barn. The sound was primal, a warning from something that had been trained to kill. Ray stumbled back, his hand moving toward his weapon. Ethan was faster. He closed the distance in 2 strides, his hand clamping around Ray's wrist with crushing force. The weapon clattered to the ground. Ethan twisted Ray's arm behind his back, driving him to his knees with surgical precision. No struggle, no dramatics, just efficient, practiced control. The woman screamed, fumbling with her phone. Titan barked once, sharp and commanding. She dropped the phone, backing against the wall. Ethan spoke without looking at her. "Sit." She sat. Titan kept his eyes on her, unblinking. Ethan knelt beside Ray, his voice low and deadly calm. "How many?" Ray gasped, his face pressed against the dirt. "What? How many dogs?" Ray hesitated. Ethan applied pressure to the joint. Ray cried out, 15! 15 here!" Ethan's grip did not loosen. "Where are the others?" Ray's breath came in ragged bursts. "There are more. Across the state, different locations. We move them fast. Buyers pay top dollar. Fighting rings, guard dogs, some go overseas." Ethan felt the familiar cold settle over him. The same cold that came in combat. The kind that shut down emotion and left only purpose. He pulled his phone from his pocket and called 911. "Operator, what is your emergency?" "I need sheriff's deputies at 1792 Hollow Ridge Road. Animal trafficking. Multiple suspects." "Send backup." The operator's voice sharpened. "Sir, are you in immediate danger?" Ethan glanced at Ray, still pinned beneath his weight. "Not anymore." 20 minutes later, the clearing filled with the flash of red and blue lights. 3 sheriff's vehicles pulled up, followed by an animal control van. Deputies poured out, weapons drawn. Ethan stood near the barn entrance, hands visible, Titan at his side. A deputy approached cautiously, his hand resting on his holster. "You the one who called this in?" "Yes, sir," Ethan said. Suspects are secured inside. The deputy's eyes flicked to Ray and the woman, both sitting against the barn wall, hands zip-tied behind their backs. Ethan had made sure of that. The deputy's posture relaxed slightly. "Name?" "Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cross, Navy SEALs." The deputy blinked. "You active duty?" "On leave." The deputy nodded slowly, processing. "All right, Commander. We will take it from here." Ethan stepped aside, watching as officers moved through the barn. He heard gasps. Curses. One deputy, a young woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, emerged carrying the small German Shepherd puppy Ethan had seen earlier. Her eyes were wet. "She is so small," the deputy whispered. Ethan reached out, gently taking the puppy. The little dog trembled in his hands, her heartbeat rapid against his palm. "You are safe now," he murmured. Over the next hour, the scene transformed into controlled chaos. Animal control officers loaded cages into vans. Veterinarians arrived to assess the dogs. Some were stable, others were not. Ethan stayed, helping where he could. Titan moved among the cages, his presence calming the terrified animals in ways human voices could not. At one point, a senior deputy approached Ethan. "Name is Lieutenant Marcus Reeves," the deputy said, extending a hand. "I run the K9 unit for the county." Ethan shook it. "Ethan Cross." Reeves looked at Titan, then at Ethan. "That is one hell of a dog." Ethan nodded. "Best partner I have ever had." Reeves glanced back at the barn. "This is bad, Commander. Worse than anything we have seen. These are not street thugs running a backyard operation. This is organized, professional. The puppies we found here? They have been microchipped. Serial numbers traced back to legitimate breeders, stolen or bought under false pretenses, then resold into underground markets." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You are saying this is part of something bigger?" Reeves nodded grimly. "We have been tracking reports for months. Dogs disappearing from shelters, breeders getting robbed. Some of these animals end up in fighting rings. Others are sold to private security contractors overseas. Illegal as hell, but lucrative. The people running this? They have connections, money, protection." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we take them down." Reeves studied him for a long moment. "You do not have to get involved in this, Commander. You already did your part." Ethan looked down at the puppy, still cradled in his arms. She had fallen asleep, her small body finally relaxing. "I am already involved." Reeves smiled faintly. "All right then, let me buy you a coffee. We have a lot to talk about." That evening, Ethan sat across from Reeves at a small diner on the edge of Ashford. The place smelled of grease and burned coffee. A jukebox played faintly in the corner. Titan lay beneath the table, his head resting on Ethan's boot. The puppy, now cleaned and fed by the vet, slept in a carrier beside them. Reeves spread a stack of files across the table. "We have been building this case for 6 months," he said. "Started with a tip from a vet in Denver. She noticed patterns. Puppies coming in with injuries, consistent with abuse. All from different owners, but the stories were too similar. She reached out to us. We started digging. Found connections to a network operating across Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico. Dogs stolen or bred specifically for illegal trade. Fighting rings, private militias. Even some cartel operations south of the border." Ethan scanned the files. Photos of warehouses, names, financial records. "How deep does this go?" "Deep," Reeves said. "The operation is run by a man named Victor Kane, former military, dishonorable discharge. Now he runs a private security firm called Sentinel Solutions. On paper, they provide guard dogs and K9 training to legitimate clients. Under the surface, they are trafficking animals, falsifying pedigrees, and selling to anyone who pays. Kane has connections in law enforcement, Some local deputies are on his payroll. That is why we have had trouble building a case." Ethan leaned back, his mind processing. "You need someone who can get inside." Reeves nodded. "We need evidence. Financial records, communications, proof that links Kane directly to the trafficking. But we can not get a warrant without more." "That is where you come in." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You want me to go undercover?" "Not officially," Reeves said carefully. "You are a civilian on leave. You have no legal authority here. But if you were to, say, express interest in buying a trained protection dog from Sentinel Solutions, you might get access. We cannot." Ethan's eyes flicked to Titan, then to the sleeping puppy. "What happens to the dogs we found today?" Reeves sighed. "The ones that survive will go to shelters, hopefully adopted. But without shutting down the source, more will take their place. This is not just about saving 15 dogs, Commander. This is about stopping the people who see them as products." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Tell me what you need." 3 days later, Ethan walked into the offices of Sentinel Solutions. The building sat on the outskirts of Denver, a sleek glass structure that screamed legitimacy. Inside, the lobby was polished, professional. A receptionist greeted him with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Sentinel Solutions. How can we help you today?" "I am interested in acquiring a trained protection dog," Ethan said, high level. "Personal security." The receptionist's smile widened. "Of course. Let me see if Mr. Kane is available." Ethan waited, his hands relaxed, his posture casual. But his mind was cataloging everything. Security cameras in the corners, key card access to the back offices, 2 guards near the elevator, both armed. This was not a normal business. A door opened, and Victor Kane stepped out. He was tall, mid-50s, with silver hair and a tailored suit. His handshake was firm, his smile confident. "Mr. Cross," Kane said. "I understand you are looking for a protection dog." Ethan nodded. "Something trained, reliable. I travel frequently. Need a dog that can handle high-stress environments." Kane's eyes flicked over Ethan, assessing. "You have experience with working dogs?" "Navy," Ethan said simply. Kane's smile grew. "Then you know what real training looks like? Follow me." They walked through the facility. Kane showed him training yards, kennels. Ethan asked questions, took mental notes. At one point they passed a locked room. Heavy steel door, keypad entry. "What is in there?" Ethan asked casually. Kane's smile did not falter. "Specialized training. High-value clients only. We keep certain assets secure." Ethan nodded, filing the information away. They returned to Kane's office. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, photos on the wall of Kane, in uniform. Another of him shaking hands with a senator. Kane poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "So, Mr. Cross, what kind of budget are we working with?" Ethan met his eyes. "Money is not an issue. I need the best." Kane leaned back, swirling his glass. "The best does not come cheap. We are talking $30,000 to $50,000 for a fully trained protection dog. Lineage, certification, guaranteed performance." Ethan did not blink. "That is acceptable." Kane studied him for a long moment. Then he smiled. "I think we can help you, Mr. Cross. Give me a week. I will find you something special." They shook hands. Ethan left the building, his mind already racing. He had seen enough. Now he needed proof. That night, Ethan sat in his truck outside Sentinel Solutions. Titan lay in the passenger seat, watching. The building was dark, except for a few interior lights. Ethan checked his watch. 2 a.m. He pulled a small earpiece from his pocket and fitted it. Reeves's voice crackled through. "You in position?" Ethan keyed his mic. "Affirmative. Good. We have got your back if things go sideways. But officially, we are not here." "Understood," Ethan said. He stepped out of the truck, moving through the shadows. Titan followed, silent as a ghost. They approached the building from the rear. Ethan had scouted the perimeter earlier. No guards at this hour. Security cameras on a loop. He reached the service door and pulled a small device from his pack. Lockpick. Old school. 15. Seconds later, the door clicked open. Inside, the facility was quiet. Dim emergency lights cast long shadows. Ethan moved through the corridors, Titan at his side. They reached the locked room Kane had avoided showing him. Ethan examined the keypad. 4-digit code. He pulled a small scanner from his pocket, a gift from a buddy in Intel. The device cycled through combinations. 30 seconds. The lock beeped. Green light. The door opened. Inside was a nightmare. Cages lined the walls. Dozens of them. Dogs in various stages of training. Some bore scars. Others wore shock collars. In the corner, a desk held stacks of documents. Ethan moved quickly, photographing everything. Breeding records. Sales invoices. Names of buyers. Some were private citizens. Others were shell companies. A few were addresses in countries where laws did not apply. Titan growled softly. Ethan turned. At the far end of the room, a larger cage held a single dog. A German shepherd, massive. His coat was scarred. His eyes held no light, just exhaustion. Ethan approached slowly. The dog did not move, did not react. Ethan knelt, speaking softly. "Easy, boy. You are all right." The dog's eyes flickered. Just for a moment. Recognition. Hope. Ethan reached for the cage latch. A voice cut through the darkness. "I would not do that if I were you." Ethan turned slowly. Victor Kane stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards. Both held weapons. Kane's smile was gone. "You should have taken the deal, Mr. Cross. Now we have a problem." Ethan stood, his hands visible, his body relaxed. Titan positioned himself between Ethan and the guards, a low growl rumbling. Kane glanced at the dog. "Impressive animal. Military trained?" Ethan did not answer. Kane sighed. "You are not a buyer. You are law enforcement, or worse." Ethan's voice was calm. "Does it matter?" Kane's eyes hardened. "It matters because you just made a very stupid mistake. This facility is private property. You are trespassing, and accidents happen." He nodded to the guards. "Take care of this." The guards moved forward. Ethan's body shifted into combat stance. Titan barked once, sharp and commanding. The first guard raised his weapon. Ethan moved. Fast. Precise. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, his hand deflecting the weapon as he drove his elbow into the guard's throat. The man dropped, gasping. The second guard swung his weapon toward Titan. The dog lunged, jaws clamping onto the man's forearm. The guard screamed, dropping the weapon. Kane backed toward the door, reaching for his own weapon. Ethan was faster. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his hand clamping around Kane's wrist, twisting. The weapon clattered to the floor. Ethan drove Kane against the wall, his forearm pressed against the man's throat. Not enough to kill, just enough to immobilize. "You are done," Ethan said quietly. Kane's eyes widened, fear replacing arrogance. Outside, sirens wailed, lights flooded the parking lot. Reeves had been waiting for the signal. Deputies poured into the building. Ethan stepped back, releasing Kane. The man slumped against the wall, coughing. Titan released the guard, returning to Ethan's side. Blood dripped from the dog's muzzle, but his eyes were calm. Reeves entered the room, weapon drawn. He surveyed the scene and shook his head. "You could not wait for backup?" Ethan shrugged. They were about to destroy evidence. Reeves holstered his weapon. "Fair enough." He gestured to the documents. "This enough?" Ethan nodded. "More than enough." Over the next week, the case unraveled. Kane's operation was dismantled. Arrests were made across 3 states. Financial records revealed connections to international trafficking networks. The dogs were rescued. Some were rehabilitated. Others, too damaged, were given sanctuary in specialized facilities. The small German shepherd puppy Ethan had carried out of the barn was adopted by the young deputy who had first held her. She named her Hope. Ethan stood in the clearing, where it had all begun. The farmhouse was empty now. Crime scene tape fluttered in the wind. Titan sat beside him, watching the horizon. The scarred German shepherd from Kane's facility stood on Ethan's other side. Ethan had taken him home, named him Valor. The dog was healing, slowly, learning to trust again. Reeves approached, carrying a folder. "Thought you would want to see this," he said, handing it over. Final count. 83 dogs recovered. 15 trafficking operations shut down. 7 arrests. Including Kane. Ethan scanned the documents. What happens to Kane? Trial starts in 3 months. Federal charges: trafficking, racketeering, animal cruelty. He is looking at 20 years minimum. Ethan nodded slowly. Good. Reeves glanced at Valor. You keeping him? Ethan looked down at the dog. Valor's eyes, once empty, now held something new. Purpose. Yeah, Ethan said. He has earned a second chance. Reeves smiled. So have you, Commander. Ethan did not respond. He just stood there, watching the sun set over the mountains. Titan and Valor beside him. 3 warriors, each scarred, each healing, each ready. 6 months later, Ethan stood in a small community center in Ashford. The room was filled with people, families, children, volunteers. At the front, a banner read, Second Chances K, 9 Sanctuary. Ethan had used his savings to buy the old farmhouse. Reeves had helped him convert it into a rehabilitation center for rescued dogs. Titan worked as a therapy dog, helping traumatized animals learn to trust again. Valor, fully recovered, assisted with training. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, approached Ethan. She held the small German Shepherd puppy, Hope. The puppy had grown. Her coat gleamed. Her eyes sparkled. Thank you, the girl said softly, for saving her. Ethan knelt, scratching Hope behind the ears. She saved herself. I just gave her a chance. The girl smiled. My mom says you are a hero. Ethan shook his head. I am just a guy who could not walk away. The girl tilted her head. Is that not what heroes do? Ethan paused. Then he smiled. Maybe. That night Ethan sat on the porch of the old farmhouse. The mountains stretched endlessly before him. Stars filled the sky. Titan lay at his feet. Valor rested beside him. Inside, the rescued dogs slept. Safe, warm, healing. Ethan thought about the ad on Craigslist. Free puppy to good home. It had been a trap, a lure, but it had also been the beginning of something else. A mission, a purpose, a way forward. Sometimes miracles do not arrive with fanfare. They come quietly. A Craigslist ad, a barking dog, a choice to stop instead of drive past. Perhaps that is how grace works, not through grand gestures, but through small moments of courage. When one person decides that silence is not an option, that walking away is not acceptable, that even in darkness, light can be found. The winter came early to Ashford that year. Snow blanketed the mountains by late October, turning the world into something clean and quiet. Ethan stood in the training yard of Second Chances K9 Sanctuary, watching Valor work with a new arrival, a young Rottweiler named Atlas, rescued from a fighting ring in Wyoming. The dog was terrified of everything: loud noises, sudden movements, even kindness. Valor approached slowly, his body language soft and unthreatening. He lay down in the snow a few feet from Atlas, not making eye contact, just being present, patient. It was a technique Ethan had learned from watching Titan. Sometimes the best comfort came from silent understanding. From another dog who had walked through darkness and survived, Atlas watched Valor with wide, uncertain eyes. Minutes passed. Then, slowly, the Rottweiler took a single step forward, then another. Eventually, he lay down beside Valor, their bodies barely touching. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. This was why he had stayed, why he had turned the farmhouse into a sanctuary instead of walking away after Kane's arrest, because healing was not a single moment. It was 1,000 small ones, each one mattering, each one building toward something larger. Behind him, the sound of tires on gravel announced a visitor. Ethan turned to see a black SUV pulling up the long driveway. Government plates. His instincts prickled. Titan, who had been resting on the porch, stood immediately, ears forward. The vehicle stopped and a woman stepped out. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible true stories of courage and loyalty. Mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a dark suit and an expression that meant business. "Commander Cross," she said, approaching with measured steps. Her voice carried authority, the kind that came from years of giving orders and expecting them to be followed. "I am Special Agent Rebecca Marsh, FBI, Behavioral Analysis Unit." Ethan's posture remained relaxed, but his mind shifted into assessment mode. He nodded once. "What can I do for you, Agent Marsh?" She glanced around the sanctuary, taking in the kennels, the training yard, the dogs. "I have been following your work here. Impressive operation. You have rehabilitated, 30 dogs in the past 6 months?" 37, Ethan said. Marsh nodded, her expression unreadable. The Victor Kane case made waves, shut down a major trafficking network. But it also opened up new questions. We have been tracking patterns. Dogs stolen from military installations. K-9 units going missing during transport. High-value animals with specialized training disappearing into black markets. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had heard rumors, whispers in the veteran community. Working dogs stolen or sold by people with inside access. It was one of the reasons he had started the sanctuary, to create a safe place for animals no one else wanted to protect. "What does this have to do with me?" Ethan asked. Marsh pulled a tablet from her briefcase and handed it to him. On the screen was a photograph. A Belgian Malinois, tan and black, wearing a military vest. The dog's eyes were sharp, intelligent. Below the photo, text read, K9, Ranger, military working dog, missing since August 15th, last seen Fort Carson, Colorado. "That is 3 months ago," Ethan said, scrolling through the file. Marsh nodded. Ranger was being transported from Fort Carson to a training facility in Virginia. The transport van was ambushed on a rural highway near the Kansas border. 2 soldiers injured, 3 dogs taken. Ranger was one of them. He is an explosives detection specialist, 8 years old, highly trained, worth over $100,000 on the black market. Ethan handed the tablet back. "You think this is connected to Kane's network?" "We know it is. One of Kane's associates, a man named Derek Voss, was released on bail 2 weeks ago. He skipped town before his court date. We have been tracking his movements. He has been making calls to contacts in Eastern Europe and Mexico, setting up new distribution channels." Marsh paused, her eyes meeting Ethan's. 3 days ago, we got a tip. Someone spotted a dog matching Ranger's description at an underground auction in New Mexico. We need someone who can get inside, someone the buyers will trust." Ethan crossed his arms. "You want me to go undercover again?" "This is not my jurisdiction, Agent Marsh. I am not law enforcement. That is exactly why we need you." Marsh's voice softened slightly. "These people know law enforcement. They can smell a cop from a mile away. But you? You are a SEAL. You run a dog sanctuary. You have credibility in circles we cannot penetrate. If you express interest in acquiring a high-value protection dog, doors will open." Ethan looked back at the training yard, where Valor and Atlas still lay together in the snow. "I have responsibilities here. We will provide support, financial resources, backup, whatever you need." Marsh stepped closer. "Commander, these are military working dogs. They served their country just like you did. They deserve to come home." Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Tell me everything." 2 days later, Ethan found himself in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The city sprawled across the high desert, all adobe buildings and endless sky. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, a leather jacket, boots. Titan sat beside him in the rental truck, alert and watchful. They were staying at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where no one asked questions. Marsh had provided him with a cover identity. Ethan Ross, private security consultant, former military, now working for wealthy clients who needed protection dogs. The story was simple, close enough to the truth that he would not have to fabricate too much. The auction was scheduled for tomorrow night, location still unknown. Buyers would receive instructions via encrypted message 24 hours before. Ethan spent the afternoon running reconnaissance, driving through neighborhoods, mapping escape routes, identifying potential safe houses. Titan watched it all with the calm focus of a dog who had done this 1,000 times. That evening, Ethan's phone buzzed. An encrypted message. Coordinates. A warehouse district on the south side of the city. 10 p.m. Cash only. No weapons. He forwarded the information to Marsh, then prepared. He could not bring a weapon, but that did not mean he was unarmed. Years of training had taught him that the most dangerous weapon was the one people did not see coming. His body, his mind, his ability to read a situation and adapt, and Titan, the dog, was worth more than any firearm. The next night, Ethan drove through the empty streets of the warehouse district. Graffiti covered the walls. Streetlights flickered. The air smelled of diesel and decay. He found the address. A massive concrete building with boarded windows and a single steel door. 2 men stood guard outside, both armed, both looking like they had done this before. Ethan parked and stepped out. Titan followed, staying close. One of the guards held up a hand. "You Ross?" Ethan nodded. The guard gestured to Titan. "Dog stays. Outside." Ethan's voice was cold and flat. "He comes with me, or I leave." The guards exchanged glances. One spoke into a radio. After a moment, he nodded. "Fine. But he causes trouble. You both get dropped." Inside, the warehouse had been transformed. Portable lights illuminated a central area where rows of chairs faced a raised platform. 30 people sat scattered throughout, all men, all watching with the predatory patience of sharks circling prey. At the front, a man in an expensive suit stood beside a table covered with files and tablets. This was the auctioneer. Ethan found a seat near the back. Titan lay at his feet, eyes scanning the room. Around them, conversations hummed in multiple languages. Russian, Spanish, Arabic. These were not amateurs. These were professionals. People who bought and sold violence for a living. The auctioneer tapped a microphone. "Gentlemen, welcome. Tonight we have 6 exceptional specimens. Each has been evaluated, tested, and certified. Payment is cash or cryptocurrency. No refunds, no questions." The first dog was brought out, a German Shepherd, young, maybe 3 years old. The handler held the leash tight as the dog strained against it, teeth bared. The auctioneer described the dog's training, attack commands, bite work, aggression. Bidding started at $20,000. Within minutes, it sold for $45,000. Ethan watched, his expression neutral, but his mind cataloging everything, faces, accents, who bid on what. He recognized one man from Marsh's briefing, a cartel enforcer from Juarez. Another was a private military contractor from a firm blacklisted by the United Nations. These were not people who cared about laws or ethics. They cared about results. The third dog brought out was Ranger. Ethan knew immediately. The Belgian Malinois stepped onto the platform with the controlled grace of a trained soldier. His coat was thinner than in the photo, his eyes harder, but the intelligence was still there. The dog scanned the crowd, assessing threats, just like he had been trained to do. "Military working dog," the auctioneer said. 8 years old, explosives detection, tactical support, proven in combat zones. Fluent in hand signals and voice commands. This is a Tier 1 asset, gentlemen. Bidding starts at $75,000. Hands went up, numbers climbed, Ethan waited. He needed to time this carefully. Too eager, and he would seem desperate. Too passive, and he would lose the dog. At $120,000, only 3 bidders remained. Ethan raised his hand. 130. A man across the room countered. 140. Ethan did not hesitate. 150. The room went quiet. The other bidder glared at Ethan, then shook his head and lowered his hand. The auctioneer smiled. "Sold. To the gentleman in the back. Mr. Ross, please see me after the auction to complete payment." Ethan nodded, his expression calm. Beside him, Titan remained perfectly still, but Ethan could feel the tension in the dog's body. They both knew this was just the beginning. After the auction ended, Ethan approached the auctioneer. The man's smile was professional, practiced. "Mr. Ross, excellent choice. Ranger is one of our finest. How would you like to pay?" "Cryptocurrency," Ethan said. "I will need an hour to arrange the transfer." The auctioneer's smile widened. "Of course. We have a secure room in the back where you can wait." Ethan followed him through a doorway into a smaller office. The auctioneer gestured to a chair. "Make yourself comfortable. I will bring Ranger to you once payment is confirmed." The door closed behind him. Ethan waited until the footsteps faded, then he moved. He pulled a small device from his pocket. A signal jammer Marsh had provided. He activated it, cutting off all external communications in the room. Then he accessed the office computer, bypassing the password with a USB drive loaded with custom software. The screen flickered. Files appeared. Shipping manifests, client lists, financial records. Ethan uploaded everything to a secure server, then wiped his tracks. 5 minutes later, the door opened. The auctioneer entered, followed by a handler leading Ranger. The Belgian Malinois stopped when he saw Titan, his body going rigid. The two dogs stared at each other, not aggressive, assessing, recognizing something familiar. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "Payment confirmed. Ranger is yours. Here are his medical records and training certifications." The handler extended the leash to Ethan. Ethan took it, his hand steady. He knelt beside Ranger, speaking softly. "Easy, boy. You are going home." The dog's ears twitched. Something in Ethan's voice, in his scent, triggered recognition. This was military. This was safe. Ethan stood, nodding to the auctioneer. "Pleasure doing business." Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Ethan walked toward his truck, Ranger and Titan flanking him. He had just reached the vehicle when headlights flooded the parking lot. 3 SUVs roared, in, blocking the exits. Doors flew open, and armed men poured out. "FBI! Drop your weapons!" The guards from inside the warehouse burst out, guns drawn. Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked through the night. Ethan dropped behind his truck, pulling both dogs with him. Titan pressed against him, body coiled and ready. Ranger, confused but trained, stayed low. Ethan's mind raced. He needed to get the dogs out. Now. He spotted a gap between 2 buildings, a narrow alley leading to the street beyond. Titan, Ranger, with me. He moved fast, staying low, using the vehicles as cover. Bullets sparked off metal, shouts echoed. The dogs followed without hesitation, their military training overriding fear. They reached the alley just as an explosion ripped through the warehouse. Fire bloomed orange against the night sky. Ethan did not look back. He ran, the dogs matching his pace, their paws silent on the pavement. 3 blocks away, he found a side street and flagged down a passing taxi. The driver's eyes widened at the sight of 2 military dogs. Ethan pulled out a wad of cash. "Airport." "Now. I will pay double." The driver hesitated, then nodded. "Get in." They drove in silence, the city lights blurring past. Ethan's phone buzzed, a message from Marsh. Evidence received. Multiple arrests made. "Well done, Commander. Meet at Safe House." Coordinates attached. The Safe House was a nondescript rental property in the suburbs. Marsh was waiting inside, along with 2 other agents. She looked at Ranger, then at Ethan. "You got him out." Ethan knelt, unclipping Ranger's leash. The dog sat, watching him with those sharp, intelligent eyes. "He deserves to go home," Ethan said quietly. Marsh nodded. "We have contacted Fort Carson. His handler is still active duty. He has been searching for Ranger since the day he disappeared. They will be reunited tomorrow." Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. "Good." Marsh handed him a folder. "Derek Voss was at the warehouse. We have him in custody, along with 18 others. The data you pulled from that computer? It is a gold mine. Financial records linking the trafficking network to operations in 6 countries. This is bigger than Kane, This is international. We are talking millions of dollars, hundreds of dogs stolen every year." Ethan looked at Ranger. The dog had laid down beside Titan, their bodies close, two soldiers finding comfort in shared experience. "How many more are out there?" Marsh's expression darkened. "Too many. We shut down one operation and 3 more pop up. It is like fighting a hydra." Ethan stood, his jaw set. "Then, we keep fighting." Marsh studied him. "You know you are not obligated to do this, Commander. You have done more than anyone could ask." Ethan looked at both dogs. Titan, who had saved his life. Ranger, who had been stolen from the people he served. "These are not just animals, Agent Marsh. They are soldiers. They served, they sacrificed, and when they needed us, we failed them. I will not fail them again." Marsh was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "We could use someone like you on a more permanent basis. The Bureau has been trying to establish a task force focused on animal trafficking, military working dogs, police K9S, high-value breeds. We need someone who understands both the animals and the people who exploit them." Ethan did not answer immediately. He thought about the sanctuary, about Valor and Atlas and all the other dogs learning to trust again, about the quiet life he had been trying to build. Then he thought about Ranger, stolen from his handler, about the dogs still trapped in cages somewhere, waiting for rescue that might never come. "What would this look like?" Ethan asked. "Consultant position. You would work with us on cases involving animal trafficking, undercover operations when needed, but you would keep your sanctuary. In fact, it would be perfect cover. A SEAL running a dog rescue? No one would suspect you are also working with the FBI. You would have resources, backup, legal protection, and you would be saving lives." Ethan looked at Titan. The dog gazed back, amber eyes calm and knowing. "What do you think, boy?" Titan's tail wagged once, not excitement. Approval. Ethan turned back to Marsh. "All right, I am in, but I have conditions." Marsh raised an eyebrow. "Name them." "Any dog we recover comes through my sanctuary first. They get proper rehabilitation before being returned to service or adopted out. Second, I choose my team. If I am going undercover, I need people I trust watching my back. Third, Titan goes with me. Always." Marsh extended her hand. "Deal." They shook. "Welcome to the task force, Commander." Over the next 6 months, Ethan's life transformed into something he had never expected. By day, he ran Second Chance's K9 Sanctuary, training dogs, working with volunteers, helping traumatized animals learn to trust again. By night, he became someone else. A ghost moving through the shadows of the criminal underworld, identifying traffickers, gathering evidence, rescuing dogs one operation at a time. The sanctuary grew, more volunteers, more dogs, more success stories. Valor became a certified therapy dog, working with veterans suffering from PTSD. Atlas, the terrified Rottweiler, learned to play again, his tail wagging as children petted him at community events. Hope, the small German Shepherd puppy from the first rescue, became the sanctuary's mascot, her story inspiring donations and support. But the darkness never stopped. For every dog Ethan saved, 10 more were stolen. For every trafficker arrested, 5 more took their place. The network was vast, sophisticated, and ruthless. Ethan worked cases across the country. A fighting ring in Louisiana, a breeding operation in Nevada, a smuggling route through Texas. Each operation brought new challenges, new dangers, but also new victories. He built a team. Marcus Reeves, the deputy who had first brought him into this world, became his primary law enforcement contact. Dr. Sarah Chen, a veterinarian specializing in trauma recovery, joined the sanctuary full-time. And Agent Marsh became something unexpected, a friend, someone who understood the weight of the mission. The cost of caring too much. It was late spring when Ethan received a call that changed everything. He was in the training yard, working with a young German Shepherd named Scout, when his phone rang. "Unknown number," he answered cautiously. "This is Cross." A voice, distorted by electronic modification, spoke. Commander Ethan Cross, Navy SEALs. Second Chances K-9 Sanctuary, FBI consultant. You have made a lot of enemies. Ethan's body went still. Who is this? Someone who knows what you are doing, someone who wants it to stop, the trafficking, the rescues, the arrests. You are costing powerful people a lot of money. Ethan's voice was cold. Good. The voice chuckled. You are brave. Stupid, but brave. I am calling to give you a warning. Walk away, shut down your operation, disappear, or people you care about will start dying. The line went dead. Ethan stood motionless, his mind processing the threat. Titan appeared at his side, sensing the shift in his handler's energy. Ethan knelt, running his hand over the dog's head. Looks like we just made the big leagues, boy. He called Marsh immediately. We have a problem. She arrived at the sanctuary 2 hours later, accompanied by 3 other agents. They swept the property for surveillance devices, found 2 hidden cameras and a GPS tracker on Ethan's truck. Someone has been watching you, Marsh said grimly. Probably for weeks. Ethan's jaw tightened. They threaten people I care about. Marsh met his eyes. We can put you in protective custody. Relocate you. Give you a new identity. Ethan shook his head. I am not running. Then we fortify. Marsh pulled out a tablet. I am assigning a protection detail. Armed agents, 24/7. We will upgrade security here. Cameras, alarms, safe rooms, and we accelerate our investigation, find out who made that call and take them down before they can act. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He sat on the porch, watching the stars, Titan and Valor beside him. He thought about all the dogs he had saved, all the ones still out there, all the people whose lives had been enriched by these animals. He thought about walking away, about disappearing into a quiet life where no one knew his name or cared what he did. But then he looked at Titan, at Valor, at the kennels full of dogs who had been given second chances. And he knew he could not stop, would not stop, because some fights were worth the cost. Some missions mattered more than safety. The next morning, Ethan called a meeting. His entire team gathered in the sanctuary's main building. Reeves, Dr. Chen, the volunteers, even Agent Marsh and her team. I received a threat yesterday, Ethan said without preamble. Someone wants me to shut down this operation, to stop rescuing dogs, to walk away. He paused, looking at each face. I am not going to do that, but I will not ask any of you to stay. This has become dangerous. If you want to leave, I understand. No one will think less of you. The room was silent. Then Dr. Chen stood. I am staying. Reeves nodded. Me too. One by one, every person in the room voiced their commitment. Even the youngest volunteer, a teenager named Miguel who had been helping on weekends, stood. My uncle was a Marine. He had a military working dog in Afghanistan. That dog saved his life 3 times. When they came home, the dog was retired, and my uncle had to fight for 2 years just to adopt him. These animals deserve better. I am staying. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Gratitude, pride, the weight of responsibility. All right then, he said, we keep moving forward. But we do it smart. We follow protocols, we watch each other's backs, and we do not take unnecessary risks. Marsh stepped forward. We have a lead. One of Derek Voss's associates flipped. He gave us a name, Marcus Keller, former CIA. Now runs a private intelligence firm. He has been the money behind the trafficking network, laundering funds, providing logistics, protecting high-value clients. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Where is he? That is the problem. Keller is smart. He operates through intermediaries, shell companies, encrypted communications. We have never been able to get close. But our informant says Keller is hosting a private event next month, an auction. Not dogs this time. Information, classified intelligence stolen from military databases, plans for K-9 training programs, genetic research, breeding protocols. He is selling military secrets to foreign buyers. Ethan processed this. You want me to get inside, Marsh nodded. It is invitation only. High-value clients. But we can create an identity for you. A buyer interested in starting a private military contracting firm. Someone who needs cutting-edge K-9 intelligence. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Where is the event? Marsh hesitated. Prague. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Czech Republic? Marsh nodded. International waters, legally speaking. Keller chose it specifically because it is outside U.S. jurisdiction. If we want him, we will have to work with Interpol. And we will need someone on the inside feeding us real-time intelligence. When do we leave? Ethan asked. 2 weeks. Marsh handed him a folder. Everything you need to know about your new identity. David Kane. Yes, we borrowed the last name from Victor Kane. It is a psychological tactic. Makes you seem connected to the old network. Gives you credibility. Ethan opened the folder, scanning the documents. Then he looked up at Marsh. This is it? Is not it? The end game? Marsh met his eyes. If we take down Keller, we cut the head off the snake. Everything collapses. All the trafficking rings, all the corruption, all of it. Ethan nodded slowly. Then let us finish this. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation, language training, cultural briefings, intelligence reports. Ethan studied Keller's background, his business operations, his known associates. He memorized details about private military contracting, K-9 training methodologies, genetic research protocols. He became David Kane, a man with money, ambition, and no moral boundaries. The night before he left, Ethan sat with Titan in the training yard. The dog rested his head on Ethan's knee, eyes half closed. You are not coming this time, boy, Ethan said softly. I need you here, protecting this place, protecting the others. Titan's eyes opened, gazing up at his handler. Ethan scratched behind the dog's ears. I will come back. I promise. Valor approached, settling on Ethan's other side. The scarred German shepherd had become his shadow over the past year, a reminder of what they were fighting for. You have come a long way, Ethan murmured. Both of you, from broken to whole. That is what we do here. We heal, we give second chances, and we do not give up. The flight to Prague was long. Ethan traveled alone, his cover, identity established through months of careful preparation. David Kane had a documented history, bank accounts, business transactions, even a website for his fictional security firm. The FBI and Interpol had created a ghost so real, even experienced intelligence operatives would struggle to see through it. Prague was beautiful. Medieval architecture, cobblestone streets, the Vltava River winding through the city like a silver ribbon. But Ethan did not see beauty. He saw angles, exits, threats. The event was being held at a private estate outside the city. A castle, actually, built in the 14th century and recently restored by a Russian oligarch who rented it out for exclusive events. Ethan arrived in a hired car, wearing a tailored suit and carrying a leather briefcase. The estate was heavily guarded. Men in tactical gear patrolled the grounds. Security cameras covered every approach. Inside, the great hall had been converted into an elegant reception space. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, waitstaff circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. 40 people mingled, all wealthy, all dangerous, all pretending civility while negotiating deals that would never see the light of day. Ethan accepted a glass of champagne he would not drink and moved through the crowd. He recognized faces from intelligence briefings, arms dealers, money launderers, hackers for hire. And there, at the center of it all, stood Marcus Keller. He was shorter than Ethan expected, maybe 5'9", with silver hair and designer glasses. He wore an expensive suit and a smile that never reached his eyes. He looked like a college professor, not a man who had orchestrated the theft and trafficking of hundreds of animals, Mr. Kane. Keller's voice was smooth, cultured. I have been looking forward to meeting you. Ethan shook his hand. The pleasure is mine, Mr. Keller. Your reputation precedes you. Keller chuckled. As does yours. A former associate of Victor Kane's? You must have stories. Ethan's smile was cold. I prefer to focus on the future. Kane's methods were effective but lacked vision. I intend to build something more sophisticated. Keller's eyes gleamed. Ambitious. I like that. Tell me, what brings you to my humble gathering? Ethan set down his champagne glass. I am establishing a private military contracting firm. Specialized security for high-value clients. I need access to cutting-edge K-9 programs, training protocols, genetic research, the kind of information governments keep classified. Keller nodded slowly. That sort of information does not come cheap. Ethan met his gaze. Money is not an issue. What I need is reliability, discretion, and most importantly, results. Keller smiled. Then you have come to the right place. Follow me. They walked through the castle, passing guards and closed doors until they reached a private study. Inside, a large screen displayed documents. Training manuals, breeding protocols, research files marked top secret. Keller gestured to the screen. This is just a sample. I have complete databases, military working dog programs from 6 countries, genetic research on aggression, intelligence, trainability, even experimental programs involving enhanced training methods. Ethan's blood ran cold, but his expression remained neutral. How did you acquire this? Keller's smile widened. I have people everywhere, Mr. Kane, military bases, research facilities, even the FBI. When you have enough money and the right connections, information flows to you like water. Ethan nodded slowly, his mind recording every detail. What is your price? $500,000. Cryptocurrency, untraceable. In exchange, you receive everything. Complete access to my network, ongoing intelligence updates, even priority assistance if you run into legal difficulties. Ethan extended his hand. You have a deal. They shook. Keller's grip was firm, confident. Excellent. I will have my assistant prepare the transfer protocols. In the meantime, please enjoy the reception. We will finalize details tomorrow morning. Ethan returned to the great hall, his mind racing. He had gotten what he needed. Keller's confession, evidence of his network, proof of the stolen intelligence. Now he just had to survive until extraction. He moved toward the exit, planning to signal Marsh. But as he reached the door, a hand gripped his shoulder. Mr. Kane. A voice, cold and suspicious. Or should I say, Commander Cross. Ethan turned slowly. A man stood behind him, tall, muscular, with a scar running down his left cheek. Ethan recognized him from the intelligence briefings. Dmitry Volkov, former Spetsnaz, now a mercenary working for Keller. I think you have me confused with someone else, Ethan said calmly. Volkov smiled. No confusion. I saw you in Albuquerque. At the warehouse, you were with the FBI. Ethan's body shifted subtly into combat stance. Then you know what I am capable of. Volkov's smile widened. I am counting on it. He raised his voice. Security. Immediately, 6 guards converged, weapons drawn. Ethan calculated his options. 6 armed men, no cover, no weapon, no backup arriving for at least 20 minutes. The odds were not good. But he had been in worse situations. Always had been. He just needed to survive long enough for help to arrive. Volkov gestured to the guards. Take him to the cellar. Mr. Keller will want to have a conversation before we dispose of him. The guards moved forward. Ethan did not resist. Not yet. They escorted him through the castle, down stone stairs, into a basement that smelled of damp and decay. A single chair sat in the center of the room, chains bolted to the floor. Sit, Ethan sat. The guards secured his wrists and ankles. Then they left, closing the heavy wooden door behind them. Ethan was alone in the darkness. He tested the chains, strong, professional. Keller knew what he was doing. Minutes passed. Then the door opened. Keller entered, followed by Volkov. The older man looked, disappointed. Commander Cross. I had such hopes for David Kane. Ethan said nothing. Keller circled him. You cost me a lot of money, Commander. Victor Kane was a valuable partner. Derek Voss was even more valuable. And now you have infiltrated my organization. compromised my security, threatened my entire operation. Ethan met his eyes. You deserve worse, Keller sighed. Probably. But that is not how the world works. The righteous do not always win. Sometimes evil triumphs simply because it is more organized. He nodded to Volkov. Kill him. Make it look like an accident. Drop the body in the river. Volkov pulled a knife from his belt. Ethan's mind raced. He had maybe 30 seconds before the blade found his throat. He needed a miracle. And then he heard it. A sound from above, faint but unmistakable. Barking. Keller froze. What was that? More barking, louder, closer. Volkov moved toward the door, weapon raised. The door exploded inward. Titan burst through, 85 pounds of fury and teeth. The Belgian Malinois hit Volkov like a missile, driving him to the ground. The knife clattered away. Behind Titan came Valor, the scarred German shepherd, followed by Agent Marsh and a tactical team. FBI, everyone on the ground. Keller tried to run. Marsh shot him in the leg. Non-lethal. He dropped, screaming. Volkov struggled against Titan, but the dog's jaws were locked on his arm. Valor positioned himself between Ethan and the guards who had started to react. Marsh reached Ethan, unlocking the chains. You all right, Commander? Ethan stood, rubbing his wrists. How did you find me? Marsh smiled. Titan would not stop barking. Literally would not shut up. We realized he knew something was wrong, tracked your signal, found you 30 seconds before we would have been too late. Ethan looked at Titan. The dog had released Volkov and now sat calmly, blood on his muzzle, eyes bright. Good boy, Ethan said softly. The best boy. Keller was arrested, so were 17 others at the estate. The intelligence he had been selling was recovered. Interpol coordinated with agencies across 6 countries to dismantle the entire network. 643 dogs were recovered over the next 8 months. Some were returned to military service, others retired to sanctuaries and loving homes. The trafficking network that had operated for over a decade was finally destroyed. Ethan returned to Ashford, to Second Chances K-9 Sanctuary, to the mountains and the quiet and the work that mattered. He stood in the training yard one morning, watching the sunrise paint the peaks gold. Titan sat beside him. So did Valor, and Hope, and Atlas, and Scout, and 30 others, all saved, all healing, all given a second chance. A car pulled up. Agent Marsh stepped out, carrying a folder. She approached, her expression warm. Thought you would want to see the final numbers. Ethan took the folder. 643 dogs recovered, 218 people arrested, trafficking, operations dismantled in 14 countries. And this, she handed him a letter. It was from the Department of Defense, an official commendation, recognition for his work recovering military working dogs. Ethan read it, then set it aside. That is not why I did this. Marsh smiled. I know. That is why it matters. She glanced at the sanctuary, at the dogs playing in the yard, at the volunteers arriving for their shifts. You have built something good here, Commander, something that will outlast all of us. Ethan looked at Titan. The dog gazed back, amber eyes calm and knowing. We all just did what needed doing, gave them a voice when they had none, fought when no one else would. Marsh nodded. The world needs more of that. She turned to leave, then paused. By the way, there is talk of a national task force, dedicated to protecting military working dogs and preventing trafficking. They want you to lead it. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That is a big job. Marsh smiled. Good thing you have help. She gestured to the sanctuary. All of them, every dog, every volunteer, every person whose life you have changed. You are not alone in this anymore, Commander. You never were. After she left, Ethan stood in the quiet morning light. He thought about the long road that had brought him here. A simple Craigslist ad, a free puppy, a choice to stop instead of drive past. Sometimes the smallest decisions change everything. Sometimes one person saying no to injustice starts a movement. Sometimes healing does not come from forgetting the darkness, but from choosing to light a candle anyway. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes still exist. Do not forget to subscribe if you have not already, and let us know in the comments, what was your favorite moment? Was it the K-9's loyalty, the SEAL's protection, or the moment justice was served? We read every comment. God bless, and see you in the next story. Retry.